So welcome everyone to today's webinar, Understanding Behaviour. My name is Rachel Dillon and I will be co-facilitating the webinar today with Chris Champion. I'm the team leader for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander program and Chris is our National Projects Coordinator. We also have the lovely Wendy Hickson, the team leader for Queensland, with us today. Unfortunately, poor Wendy has lost her voice. So Wendy will be supporting both Chris and I in answering any questions you may have, which you can place in the text box, which I'll mention in a moment, or perhaps any sharing of ideas that you may have today in today's webinar. So before we get started, I'm just going to run through some of the features of our webinar platform for those of you who are on here for the first time. I noticed a couple of people mentioned that this is their first webinar, so welcome. So some of you may have participated in a webinar before, but for some of you it might be a very new experience. I'll just mention some of the tools. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see your name. And looking now to the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you'll see an icon of a person in the very left-hand corner. If you click on that, you'll see a menu where you can change your icon and perhaps put a smiley face or raise your hand or ask a question, or maybe you're ready for some caffeine like myself. Just above the icon is a text box. So throughout the webinar, you'll see that some people have already started using the text box. We really encourage you to share using this text box, especially given we have already up to 50 people nearly on the webinar today, and we're expecting a few more to be dialing in. So it's hard for us to be able to listen to everybody via the audio line and to have a clear line with lots of background noise. So we really encourage you to ask questions and share ideas. We have a couple of other Positive Partnership staff members on the line as well to support you with any questions you may have. Please ensure your little speaker icon, you'll see a little speaker icon down the bottom as well, has a red cross on it, and that will mute your computer audio line because sometimes you can get feedback, and if time permits we will open the phone line at the very end of the webinar depending on whether or not we've managed to fit everything in the hour. So you may have time to share your thoughts verbally, however we do encourage you again to use the text box where possible. We hope to have quite a diverse group participating with us today, so we might have some parents, some teachers, some school staff, maybe some family members, and some professionals, and some of you may even be individuals on the spectrum yourself. So we want you all to be mindful that this webinar is quite a unique learning experience, and it's different to sharing and learning face-to-face. So give yourself this hour to be fully present and focused. It's easy to get distracted when you're on your computer, so we encourage you to make the most of this opportunity. At times there might be a moment of silence where I'm giving you time to think and reflect on what's being said. We may not be able to answer all of your questions or find solutions to all of your problems, especially concerning our topic of behaviour today. We certainly don't come from an expert model, but we rather hope that you may use the ideas generated, the information and some of the tools shared, and apply them to your own life and what's relevant to you. So we believe that parents and teachers are the experts in their own students and children, so we really want you to share your ideas and what's worked for you in the past to date. Just to let you know, if your internet drops out or for some reason you're not getting the slides coming through clearly, we will have a link to the recording of this webinar. It will be available on our website in a few days. We'll also send an email sharing the resources and links that we discussed in today's webinar. Just to let you know too, if you happen to drop out, a really quick way to refresh is the little red cross up in the right-hand corner is a reload button. You'll see it gives you an option to either reload or end a session. And I suggest just pressing reload and you'll find that it will completely refresh. We also will be watching a short video, and sometimes with different bandwidth this may not be as clear. as you expect. So we'll also encourage you to hop on our website, and Chris will be talking and sharing information about our behaviour module, which will have the video that we'll be watching in it. So we really encourage you to do that following the webinar. Okay, let's get started. Let's start with something about yourselves. It's really great to see so many people. We've got 52 now joining us from all over Australia. I noted that somebody at the beginning said they were all the way over in Western Australia, so hello to everyone. So in addition to our workshops, which some of you may have attended, and other projects that Positive Partnerships is involved in, these webinars provide an opportunity for you to connect with us in a different way. We know that some of you have registered on behalf of a group of people. I think I saw that there was a group here with us today, or using the same computer and line. So please type into the text box now, if you can, how many people are working alongside you today. So if it's just yourself, maybe just type myself or one. If there's a few of you, just the number will do nicely. Thank you. Whilst you're doing that, we're going to have a couple of polls just to get a little bit of information about the group that's with us today. So the first poll we're going to share with you is finding out what state or territory you're dialing in from. So Chris, would you mind sharing that poll with us now? Great. So as you can see, you just click on the state or territory that you're in. And so far, the winning state is Victoria, followed closely by New South Wales. And then we have a few people in the ACT. That's great. There's one person in the ACT, 4 in Queensland, 1 in South Australia, and 10 in WA. Fantastic. Wonderful. That's great to see, pretty much covering all states. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone from Northern Territory. Not yet anyway. You never know, they might be dialing in a little later. So thanks, Chris. Our second poll will be asking us all, in what capacity are you attending this webinar, just so we can see what a range of participants we have, parents or school staff or therapists, community service providers maybe, or students or individuals on the spectrum. Thanks, Chris. Okay, and it looks like we have lots of school staff with us today. That's fantastic. I'm sure you're all probably dialing in during your lunch break, so that's a credit to you. Well done for being so committed. We've got 2 students. That's fantastic. Some professionals, 5 parent carers, and the person who is the other, we'd love you to type in the text box to let us know who you are and where you're from. That would be wonderful. And it looks like we have 27 school staff, 11 professionals and 5 parent carers. That's wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Chris. Okay. We really want you to think about what your intention is today. We want you to think to yourself, how best might I use this hour? At the same time, please remember the most important thing is your knowledge of your child or the children that you support. Our key messages today involve the characteristics of a young person on the autism spectrum having a direct impact on their ability to communicate and have subsequent impacts on their behaviour. So our intentions are to help you make you feel a little bit more confident when talking about your child or the students you support behaviour, and understand that there's usually possible reasons behind challenging behaviours. We'd love it if at the end of this webinar you walk away with a clearer understanding that all behaviour has a purpose. We want you to feel safe to share ideas and strategies that have worked for you so far, so you can all hopefully walk away feeling more supported. And if you walk away with at least one new idea today, then we've achieved what we've set out to do. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to answer this question. What is behaviour? Can I ask people to share what they believe behaviour is, or a definition of what they think behaviour might be in the text box, please? How would we describe what behaviour is? Anything we say or do, what people do, learnt responses or actions, perfect. Physical actions or response to something, and communicating. You've all hit the nail on the head. Fantastic, how we act and action. You're all absolutely right. Gold stars for everyone participating today. It can be defined as everything we say and do, any observable activity, and that all behaviour is learnt, apart from involuntary behaviours such as blinking and breathing. And all behaviour serves a purpose and is usually a way to communicate. So many of you wrote communicating and action, so you're all spot on, observable actions. Great use of the text box. Thank you for sharing, everyone. So now we'd like you to type in some example behaviours in the text box. So what are some behaviours that you're observing with your children or the children you support? Again, being mindful, not to mention involuntary behaviours such as blinking or breathing. We can also mention that behaviours not necessarily always negative. They can be positive, such as smiling and laughing. So we have tantrums, talking, head banging, biting, punching, laughing, fidgeting, hitting, sneering, running, flapping, refusal, and reluctance. So it's really important to note here, most of you have definitely written some observable behaviours. We do need to be careful to mention not using non-judgmental words, so sticking to facts. For example, words like disruptive, defiant, or not listening, they're judgments. They're a way to describe a behaviour and not actually a fact or an observable action or behaviour. So we just need to be really careful to stick to, when we talk about a behaviour and we're writing a behaviour plan, to stick to observable behaviours. All behaviour occurs for a reason. All behaviour serves a function and a purpose. Children with autism often exhibit a range of behaviours that can be challenging, confronting, and confusing for their parents, teachers, and workers. Challenging behaviours present for a variety of reasons. Some stem from difficulties with their communication or perhaps their social skills. And some could be environmental, such as sensory overload, which we'll mention in a moment. And the same behaviour can actually serve more than one function. Multiple behaviours can serve the same function. For example, crying behaviour can have many reasons. It could be to get someone's attention, to communicate or express pain, sadness, or frustration. So when thinking about the children or your child that you support, have you noticed any particular behaviours that may serve more than one function? Please share any behaviours you can think of that serve more than one function. Crying, yes, definitely. Pushing, yes. Daydreaming, absolutely. Laughing, yes. We could be laughing because we're nervous, or we could be laughing at someone or with someone. And running, yep, flapping arms, all great examples of behaviours that could potentially serve more than one purpose. And distracting others, yes, that's a big one, especially in class. It could be a way of avoiding work, or as you say, Anne, it could be just that they're socialising. That's a great example. Okay, we do need to consider that sensory processing may be a possible trigger of other behaviours or further function for the individual. For example, we may see children become more active or restless and need a movement break, but may not be self-aware or have the communication skills to ask for a break. At times it can be difficult to identify whether a behaviour is occurring to meet a sensory need. For example, some behaviours such as rocking and flapping may be a calming and self-regulation strategy that we don't want to stop. So it's really important for us to be a detective and think about what we're seeing before we start to develop support strategies or look at changing or replacing a behaviour around a sensory processing issue. We talk about being a good detective, and by being a good detective, we have to have a process in place, a way of working through a structured support plan or behaviour plan and documenting the evidence that you're seeing. To determine the function of behaviour, we need to ask lots of questions and gather some information. Positive behaviour support, or PBS as it's sometimes known, and within schools it's sometimes called school-wide PBS, provides some useful tools to gather this information. So what we're going to do now is go through, first of all, the philosophy behind positive behaviour support, and then look at some tools that may support and help you along the journey. So traditional behaviour management usually focuses on what to do after the behaviour has occurred, but this does not teach the child how to behave appropriately. Research has identified that the most effective way to manage behaviour is to determine the reason or the function of the behaviour and to prevent the occurrence of the behaviour by modifying the environment and explicitly teaching the child a more appropriate way to get his or her message across or to communicate. This to get his or her message across or to communicate. This process is often referred to as positive behaviour support. There are quite a few elements that are important to positive behaviour support process. Some of these include identifying which behaviours are dangerous, damaging and disruptive, and which are just annoying or irritating. And as parents and school staff, we often hear the term, pick your battles. Investigating what sets off the behaviour and what happens before, so our triggers, people, places, activities. It's also looking at when and where the behaviour is least likely to occur. It's also looking at what happens after the behaviour. So it's using all of this information to identify the function of the behaviour and then identifying and teaching appropriate alternate behaviours or replacement behaviours. Let's start to look at some of the tools that we have that can help us become better detectives. This one is just a starting tool, and it's known as the ABC template, or antecedent, behaviour and consequence. This is just one starting tool, the ABC data sheet. It's a tool to help us identify possible reasons for a behaviour, looking at what is happening right before and right after the behaviour occurs. In the antecedents column, we record what happens before a difficult behaviour. In the behaviour column, we record what the actual behaviour is. And in the consequences column, we record what happens directly after the behaviour. So I'm just going to take a really short, easy example to just show you how this can help us start in our detective work. So we have a young boy called Josh, and Josh screams and runs away. So that is the observable behaviour. We're sticking to the facts. That's exactly what he does. Before this happens, in his classroom, the music is loud. After the behaviour, after Josh screams and runs away, the teacher chases him, and they chat. So that's how you would fill in an ABC sheet or ABC data sheet. When being a good behaviour detective, this template helps us to understand that it is just as important to look at what's happening after the behaviour as it is to look at triggers. If we were only ever to look at what's happening before, say for instance in this scenario, we would think, well, Josh is running away because the music is too loud and it's a sensory overload for him and he doesn't like loud music. But in actual fact, it could be possible that Josh is screaming and running away because the teacher that he chases him and chats with him is somebody that he really likes to hang out with. So that's just a very quick example of an ABC sheet. Another tool that's really useful that can support your detective work is our most likely and least likely chart. Information is required about the behaviour when it happens and under what circumstances. Ordinarily, we would just fill in when the behaviour happens, but it's equally important to think about when the behaviour is not happening. Why do you think this is important to consider, to look at when the behaviour is not happening? Would anyone like to share in the text box? Comparison, yes, thanks Kelly, comparing when it's happening and when it's not happening. And it gives us a teaching moment, and so you can look for possible triggers. Exactly. It might prompt an understanding of what's different. Yes, Natasha, that's spot on. So we might be looking at when a behaviour is not happening, we're needing to look at who's there, where, what's happening and the time of day. We might find that something's not happening at a certain time of day, so we may change our lesson or our home activity to a different time. The information you record on a sheet like this helps you to identify the circumstances that can provide really good teaching opportunities. This table can record much of the information gathered about a specific behaviour that we might want to stop or replace with something better. It provides you with patterns that could be possible triggers or reinforcers of the behaviour that you're wanting to stop. So most of you wrote things very similar to that, so thank you for sharing. If we were, say, to consider Joshua in the scenario, we might find that it could be not necessarily the activity, it might not be the music, it might be the time of day, or perhaps it is the teacher that he's with when he runs away. It might be that it only happens in a certain classroom and not in others. So a really useful template to tease out when it's happening, when a behaviour is happening as well as when it's not happening. If we are meeting a need or a function of a behaviour, you can address the actual behaviour. So research suggests that much of our difficult behaviour displayed by children with autism can serve one of the following purposes. That is, to get or obtain, or to get away or avoid, a sensory experience, a tangible object or activity, or something or someone. And that's pretty much it. All behaviour is serving one of these or several at a time. So again, if we were to think of Joshua, it may be that he's getting away from the loud music, which is a sensory issue. Or it may be that he's wanting or getting the attention from the teacher he meets with as he runs out of the classroom. Positive Partnerships has also developed another tool called the Planning Matrix. Some of you may have been seen this in our workshops or perhaps online. This identifies individual characteristics, possible impacts, and then a way to plan appropriate supports and strategies. If you're not familiar with the matrix, I'll provide a really brief overview, but we highly encourage you to jump online and look at our online module on the planning matrix. It's a great learning module that explains perfectly how to fill one of these in. You can see across the top of the matrix that we look at characteristics that might be relevant, and it has domains that are relevant to people on the autism spectrum: communication, social interactions, repetitive behaviours, restricted interest, sensory processing, and information processing and learning style. Down the side, you see the characteristics row, which is where we would get information about how someone communicates. Then we have the impact and the impact of how somebody communicates. And then we have strategies. So what strategies might we use to support that issue? We've got a great example here already filled in for us. Let's just take a look at the social interaction column. Please remember that many strategies to support and improve behaviour skills could be right across these characteristics and not necessarily in one area. So let's look carefully at the completed matrix on the screen and focus on the social interactions, which is highlighted here. The characteristics are difficulty understanding actions of peers, misinterpret social cues, example, someone brushing against him thinks it's bullying. The impacts for this will be that this person will misunderstand the actions of others and is easily angered and may get angry and violent when he thinks he's being bullied and can turn on others. And some of the strategies to support this child might be social stories, social skills programs, role modelling, class discussion and a buddy program. If you can think of any other great strategies that might support characteristics that this child has, please feel free to type them in the text box for us. Teaching your child specific behaviours using social scripts really help children to understand situations and explain the benefits to the children. Teaching explicit rules of different social situations and teach what they do when things aren't going their way. Role playing is also a really good way to teach children how to join in a game, and some children may need very structured role play scenarios to practice their skills. Teaching to read social cues and how to join in a game. Some children need skills broken down into smaller steps. To join in, they may even need first to learn and watch other children and then move in close and hear what they do and say and practice this. Using visual reminders such as cue cards can support initial learning and giving positive feedback for new and improved behaviours. And thanks, Wendy. Yes, explicit teaching is definitely the key. We can never assume that children on the spectrum are aware of our social norms. I'm now going to hand over to Chris to talk a little bit about our online module on behaviour. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, everyone. We've had some great examples of some tools that have been spoken about already on the webinar, the ABC template and the most likely, least likely, and also recently the positive partnerships matrix. And they're all fantastic tools for gathering that information about someone you support in order to bring about successful behavioural change. What Positive Partnerships has also done recently is to develop a new online module around an introduction to using the positive behaviour support template. I just want to ask, has anyone had a chance? I'm not sure how often you dabble in the Positive Partnerships website and the online space, but if any of you who are online have happened to have come across it and have completed it already, please feel free to write something in the text box so we get a sense of anyone. We've got close to 100 people online. Hopefully one of you might have done something. That'll be fantastic. And share your thoughts around what you thought. Yeah, thanks, Natasha. We are in the process of doing some strong promotion around it. It's only been up for just over a couple of weeks, so looking forward to sharing it more widely with people. Those are nice things there that people are saying. Fantastic. Thank you. There's a couple of users. That's excellent. So while people are still doing that, I want to acknowledge the Australian Government as the funding body of the module, and Aspect Autism Spectrum Australia, who collaborated with Positive Partnerships in the development of the module. In summation, it basically steps participants through the completion of the positive behaviour support template based around a specific animated scenario, and we'll get to show you a brief clip from that later in this webinar. The interactive component of the module provides opportunities for participants to become that detective that Rachel talked about earlier, and answer questions related to the scenario that in turn supports the completion of the template. And at the same time, people can pause and complete their own template, so they're getting a step-by-step instructional guide to completing a template for someone they support as well. So this is a new positive behaviour support template developed by Autism Spectrum Australia. So the module is based around this template, and if you look at the numbering there, which starts at 1 in the middle, which is about the explicit description of the behaviour, and Rach emphasised that a lot during her session, where it's observable actions and not judgmental terminology, because it's really, really important we get that right in order then to work out what happens in and around that, whether it's environment, whether it's individuals, in order to be able to make that successful behaviour change. So this template I'm just going to upload into the text box for you now. I'll try that again. My apologies. Actually, Rach, I might get you to do that if you can. She has already. Beautifully done. Thanks, Rach. So, and that'll also come out to you post the webinar. We'll send that out as a link with all the rest of the documentation. So the good thing about this template is it actually gives you instructions on the flip side. So it really is a nice document to give you a full appreciation and understanding of how to work your way through that template. Within the module itself, there's an example there on the screen. As each box of the template is explored, it is filled with an image relevant to that box, and you can go click on that box and it'll take you back to that stage of the box, so whether it's step 1, step 2, step 3, and you can review at any time by just clicking into that space. So it really is a really fantastic comprehensive look at using this template to really explore behaviour. Again, it provides you with specific questions based around the scenarios for you to respond to, so you can really fully understand the process involved around completing each step of that template. And it also self-populates itself once you've chosen the correct responses. It will populate this form itself, so it gives you a clear understanding of the types of things you would need to write into those respective boxes in order to create that scenario and that really clear picture of what's happening in order to make that successful change and put those successful strategies in place. And one last thing, it also has, I guess, the stars of the video, who provide a little introduction at the start of each of the boxes just to, I guess, set the scene for what's happening during the behaviour, before the behaviour, after the behaviour, and then what are some of the strategies, etc., that we need to put in place. There's a picture of Jack and his mum, who were the stars of our video. Jack's a young man on the spectrum, and his mum, and we begin by talking about Jack's favourite things. We're very, very fortunate to have Jack and his family agree to participate in the making of this module, because you are putting yourself on display for Australia and the rest of the world, and so we're so grateful that they'd be able to put themselves out there for everyone to see and use, I guess, Jack as the face of this module. And what we then did was morph and animate Jack and others in the video so that we had them moving to an animation space. And I'm about to take you into that space right now. We also consulted with significant people on the spectrum themselves to help us and guide us around some feedback around the content and the scripts, etc. And we got some really positive feedback around that as well. So I invite you at the end of this, if you haven't accessed the module, please do via our online learning space on our website. But I just want to show this beginning clip to I guess, paint a picture for you all about how we've put this together. What I need you to do, however, in order to be able to hear this properly, if on the screen you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner next to your icon, there'll be a little microphone. It will either have a red cross or not, depending whether you're listening through your computer or not. That needs to be unchecked, so no red cross on your speaker, and then you'll need to turn the speaker volume up on your computer if you're listening through there, so you'll be able to hear the audio. And the same for if you're listening through the phone, you'll need to do that on the computer to be able to hear. Now, this is going to be an interesting scenario to see whether we can actually have the buffering issues sort themselves out. So for some of you, depending on your bandwidth, etc., you may have some issues. It may lag a little bit, or it might just come to a blank screen, and I apologise for that, but it's sort of the limitations of technology at times. So let's do our best, and the good thing is that even if this doesn't come through for you, the great thing, you can log into the module at a later date and see it in all its completion. So I'll move us into that space right now, and let's see how we get on.
You don't have to see a musical to know that life can be difficult sometimes. I love musicals. I'm Jack, and this is my mom. Oh, and by the way, I'm on the autism spectrum. Just like in all great musicals, you're about to see some drama.
Hurry up, Jack. Put your shoes on. My lunch ready yet? I asked you to feed the dog. Get ready, Jack. I don't want to be late for school again. We've got an excursion. Put your shoes on. Hurry up, Jack.
Hey! There. You're going now.
Can't you ever remember the rules? No hat, no play.
Okay, everyone. Writing task is on the
Yeah, righty.
I don't feel well.
You'll be fine.
Okay, everyone. The writing task is on your desk. You've got 15 minutes. 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Not again, Jack. How many times is that this term? Go.
Jack told you there was going to be drama.
And it's okay that things go wrong.
Every day there's dramas.
That's what this module is all about.
To help make things better for everyone.
And what the behavior can be really all about.
Okay, so some nice words basically saying yes in the text box, which is great that those online were able to view that without too many issues. So I guess in just putting a bit of context around that, I forgot to say that Jack is a musical fanatic and loves musicals, so it made sense for us to have him sort of watching a musical at the start of his school day before school. And I guess what we wanted to paint was that picture of what we call straws, the series of straws that build up from the moment Jack gets up to the moment he has his challenging behaviour, and each of those straws that cause Jack to become, in many respects more anxious, more frustrated until he has this episode, and so what the module allows you to do then is explore those things in greater detail, and then set about putting in some positive strategies to and some replacement behaviours that help Jack. And the other benefit is you've got a great template that home and school can work with together, which is really, really, really important, and that to strengthen that relationship between home and school and ensure that what is happening at home and what is happening at school can be communicated across both parties, and that can only benefit Jack going forward. So I encourage you all once again to go online and complete the module, and I hope you'll find it a really useful resource for whichever field you currently work in. So thanks everyone. I'm just going to pass you back to Rachel now to keep things ticking along.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, we've managed to share with you a number of the Positive Partnerships tool and ways of becoming a good behaviour detective, and hopefully once you've done the module you'll have a better understanding of the fantastic template and be able to see a bit more of Jack as well. So we do encourage you, as Chris said, to jump on and have a look at that module. What we want to do now is hand over to you all to find out what's worked in the past for you in terms of supporting challenging behaviours. Perhaps you've got some great strategies, maybe some resources or other tools that we haven't shared, some books, maybe there's certain articles or websites. Maybe you even have a great support group or an online support group or blog that you found helpful in terms of challenging behaviours. So we invite you to share now in the text box, and hopefully I'll be able to read some out because I know you're all wonderful at sharing, and it's hard for everyone else to see. I forgot to mention too, in terms of going back and having a look at the text messages, you can use the little slider on the right-hand side of the text box to go right back to the beginning of our webinar. We'll leave this open for a good 10 to 15 minutes after our webinar so that you can go back and have a look at some of the great ideas that people have shared. So we encourage you, what has worked for you? Do you have any books or resources or websites that you've used in terms of supporting behaviour? And thanks, Jennifer. You're in the Albany region, so you have consulting teachers spreading the word constantly. Somebody else has used the ABC form. Sensory tools box. Sarah, we'd love you to share where is that something you've made on your own, or perhaps it's somewhere that people can access that? activity time in the morning before school. Someone's mentioned a book by Jed Baker called No More Meltdowns. Visual instructions, yes, creating a sensory profile is often really helpful in terms of behaviour. Zones of regulation, Jennifer's mentioned. A sensory break choice board, Grace has mentioned. Some wonderful ideas. Oh, chickens and horses, yes. There's nothing like animals and animal therapy to support students or children on the spectrum. The first and then, yes, an oldie but a goodie, Letitia. Oh, Kerry, a 5-point scale phone app. I haven't heard of that one. That sounds great. And Chris has mentioned making all staff in a school aware of students' needs. And the matrix is one way to be able to share that across the staff and having that on a central place on your G drive. Also, Sarah, the box has been made by your ES staff. Fantastic. It's got some fidget toys, a sensory toolbox. That's a wonderful idea for school. Some really great ideas. And like I said, we'll definitely leave this webinar platform open for you to scroll back and perhaps write down any ideas that you see. Once this webinar is up online, it will just be the recording and the slides, so you won't get to see all this lovely sharing. That's just for privacy reasons. So do go back and write down anything you see today. And Michelle has also mentioned animals. Yeah, wonderful. Animals and music, often really great therapy tools. Fidget cubes, fantastic. Natasha has mentioned a website called My Diffability. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And Gail has mentioned the Year 10 student ring with an outer spinner he uses. Really appreciate everybody sharing today. Like we said, you guys are the experts. As school staff and therapists and parents and carers are often more knowledgeable in their own children's needs. And Margaret has mentioned Autism Help website. Thanks so much, everyone. That's fantastic. So that leads us really nicely into talking about some websites. So again, please keep writing your ideas and perhaps even sharing some other websites. We've actually only mentioned 3 here that are fantastic when supporting positive behaviour support, but I'm sure there's plenty of other websites around. So we have the Aspect website, Autism Spectrum Australia, where you will also find a link to the positive behaviour support module, as well as some great tools and some fact sheets. So all you need to do when you jump on that website is type into the search bar positive behaviour support, and it will take you to the page there. You'll find lots of great tools, resources, articles on that website. Another great website is the Raising Children's Network. This is really good for parents and school staff and therapists. There's some great articles there as well, and they're often updated as well. So that's a fantastic website with lots of ideas. Oh, and people are still madly typing. Weighted blankets, mindfulness apps. Yes, mindfulness is a great tool to support, especially if behaviour is a sensory overload and supporting that cooling down. There's also another website here which actually talks a lot about the research behind positive behaviour support, if for anyone who's interested in finding out where all of that information stems from. The Association for Positive Behaviour Support is a great website. It's a website for further understanding. And yes, Suzanne has mentioned that if you scroll back a little bit, you'll see she's mentioned there's a great song for belly breathing on Sesame Street. So thank you everyone for sharing all of those fantastic ideas. Keep sharing any books or ideas that you might have up your sleeve. We also can't forget to mention our own website. We obviously have the new module, which is just a fantastic tool But as well as that module, we've got lots of free online courses for parents, teachers, professionals, as well as fact sheets. And many of our workshop tools are easily accessed on our website. On our homepage, you'll see we advertise where our parent carer workshops are, our webinars, our upcoming webinars, and school staff can contact their sector leaders to find out about whether or not we have any professional learning opportunities coming your way. Or you could ask your child's teacher to join one of our future webinars, or tell other staff members in your school about our webinars. We also encourage you to visit our Facebook page. We've got over 6,500 followers now, so this page includes tips and information regarding supporting school-aged children on the autism spectrum. So a great way to hear of other ideas, just like our text box really. We do want this page to offer evidence-based resources, so we encourage you to leave comments, photos, videos and links here. Our web page, our Facebook page, acts as a forum for people to share all of their experiences, and we often pose a question each week, and we get people to share their ideas and answer that question. So it's a really great Facebook page to be a part of. So we have a few minutes left. So first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for your engagement, especially in sharing ideas and resources. That's just been fantastic, and your participation in this webinar. We might actually have time to open the lines just in case anyone has any burning questions that they'd like to ask, and maybe Chris or I can answer them for you. So we'll just open the line for a few minutes. Don't feel you need to ask questions verbally. You might prefer to ask a question in the text box, but I'll just open the line.
The moderator has placed the conference into conversation mode. All participants are now unmuted.
Is there anyone who'd like to ask a question or anything we can help you with about some of the tools we've shared? Well, I'm going.
The moderator has placed the conference into presentation mode. All participants are now muted.
I'm going to take your silence as a really great sign that we have covered everything that you wanted to know in terms of positive behaviour support today. Obviously, there's always lots to learn and lots to share. So again, many thanks for your engagement and participation. We hope that you found it useful. And we hope that it might mean that you're keen to dial into future Positive Partnerships webinars, or maybe encourage others to do so. We really want your feedback as well. It's important to us. So we've actually included a really short survey to help us further develop our webinars and continue working on them and knowing what else you need and want. So please click on the blue link on the screen that you see there. You should be able to click on that with your mouse. And it will only take you a couple of minutes to complete. You'll also soon receive an email with any of the links and documents that we've mentioned during today's webinar. And again, to conclude, we will also leave the screen open for the next 10 minutes to enable you to complete our survey, as well as scroll back through any comments in the text box that you may want to write down, any ideas or resources that you may want to write down. What I might do as well, if you're having any trouble clicking on the survey link, I'll pop it here in the text box so that you can also click on there. And even if once you've hung up, you can fill that out for us. We really appreciate your feedback. Well, we'll just conclude by again thanking everyone for dialing in today. I think at one stage we were up to about 66 people, so that's a fantastic turnout, and please spread the word about our webinars and certainly do get on and enjoy that online module as a follow-up that Chris took you through. It's well worth it, and it will certainly support everything that we've talked about in this webinar today.
Sorry, Rachel, I'm just going to duck in. There's a couple of questions there around certificates of completion. It is a tricky one for us with regards to getting a certificate of completion organised and working with the government around that, because it's not an accredited webinar, but there is capacity for people just to say, I've completed this. What we're saying at the moment that we're still working on that with the government, but the email that comes around to people will say that you recently participated in this survey. In this webinar, and here's the attached resources that we promised. We hope that will suffice in the interim until we can get a decision on what we do with regard to the certificates, and that'll be a certificate on request if people wanted one, that something will be sent. But we're still in the process of negotiating that at the moment. So thanks for your patience around that.
Well, thank you, everyone. We'll close down the phone line now and leave the text box and the platform open for the next 10 minutes for you to gather your thoughts, fill in the survey, and provide any further sharing, or perhaps ask each other questions for clarification of anything that somebody has perhaps written or shared today. So thanking everyone, and have a great afternoon.